with another mailbag episode with great questions again from our listenership out there.
Something tells me venting week is going to be like more than 1 week. We might just have venting weeks, and that's okay, people. That's all right. That's what we're here for. So let's get started right now.
You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, my name is Kevin Weiss.
I'm Ulises Sambrano.
And we are the host of the Locked On Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making Locked On Rays your very first listen every day. And remember, Locked On Rays is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube at Locked On Rays. Also, be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Rays, and email us, send us a voice memo anytime to lockedonrays@gmail.com. Again, if you do want to send us a voice memo, I don't know if we've really made this totally clear. We do prefer those to be 60 seconds or less and emailed to lockedonrays@gmail.com so we can download them and export them and add them to the podcast as opposed to some of the other social media platforms out there. So without further ado, let's get right into mailbag part 2 of this week. This one, we haven't heard from this guy in a little while. Samuel Bayless, all the way from Australia, last I checked. He says, "G'day, fellas. Enjoyed the podcast all year. Well done. Considering all the use of analytics and spreadsheets, are the Rays overcoached? Do they need so many coaches, or do they just fill these roles because they're expected to? Just a thought. Cheers, fellas. And oh yeah, we need a big bat next year."
Hey Sam. Been a long time. You're right, Kevin. It's been a minute since we've heard from Sam. Hope everything's okay down under. Isn't that cool? One episode we get somebody from Scotland, the next we get somebody from Australia. Like, this is unreal.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for telling us where you're contacting us from. Like, it makes the Locked On Rays community, which is a close-knit community, but also global. It's really, really cool.
And also, thank you to Al Gore for inventing the internet. You made this all possible too. So,
of course.
Yeah, actually, no, that's great. If you can, I mean, if it's not too much trouble for you all, if you can tag where you're from, like if you're listening from Texas, if you're listening from Afghanistan, if you're listening from Timbuktu, that adds a little bit of character and color to your emails. And more specifically, if you want to really placemake yourself, you can say the town that you're, if you're in Frisco, Texas, or you're in Daytona Beach, Florida, whatever it is, that adds a little spice as well. So,
Kevin, I'll give them one. I'll up you and say, if they tweet a picture of them listening to Locked On Rays and saying where they are listening from, for example, Sam Bayless would put a picture of him watching Locked On Rays or seeing Locked On Rays, and then doing hashtag Locked On Rays, listening from Australia. Guess what? We would retweet that from the Locked On Rays podcast account, because that would be really cool.
That would be awesome. And let me up you one more. I mean, while we're going on this track here, if there's any listeners in Zephyr Hills, and if you can confirm that, please let us know, and we'll add you to the top of the list, just like we do with voice memos. So
there you go.
Zephyr Hills, Florida listeners, we will put priority on you too. And don't just say you're from Zephyr Hills, Florida. Like, I need some evidence. I could technically, I've got
take a picture of Kevin Weiss while working, and then say that you're at Zephyr Hills.
Give me send me a picture of your water bill, and I can look up if you're in the city limits, and I can So no, but anyway, we love the literally the worldwide interaction, the global interaction that we get from individuals like Sam and so many others.
Yeah. All right. So Sam, going to your question, let's see. Are the Rays overcoached? That's, I think if you look back at the school system, and at least I in elementary school, I used to have like 40 kids and there was one teacher. That was insanity. That was insanity. I think more coaches would help more, because then you can have a little bit more of a niche,
Yes.
and every player / every student would feel like they have access to a coach, to a teacher. So I
Yeah.
think the Dodgers use this. I think the Dodgers have like a plethora of coaches
Right.
that not every other MLB team has. So on the contrary, I think the Rays should have more coaches, so more guys are available to be talked to ask questions to. I think that would be great, a great way of spending your resources. You hear that, Stu? That would be
Yeah.
fantastic. So, Sam, I would take the opposite. I would say more coaches. So, and go even further. You have a lot of Latin players. Well, maybe you get coaches that are bilingual, that are able to do that. So Manny Navarro doesn't have to be just with a certain part of the group. He can do
Yeah.
other things too, and that would free up sometimes. So I would say more coaches, if you have, depending on your diversity, have them speak more languages. And the second part of Sam's question was, do we need a bat?
He
Heck
said,
yeah.
basically, he says, yes, we need a big bat. He's saying
Agreed.
that emphatically.
I agree with it. Well, what about you, Kevin? Do you agree with more coaches?
Yeah, I think that I I would imagine there is absolutely a law of diminishing returns when it comes to coaches, and I'm sure that the Rays have cracked that code and cracked that formula. Um, I don't know if they necessarily need more coaches. I just think maybe the coaches that they have need to be better and get their message across better. And maybe that goes to the bilingual aspect of things. I mean, this is the organization that has what, like an analytics coach in the dugout, first
Yeah.
time that's ever happened. And I mean, we look at their minor league development. I think they're fine. They're good on coaches. It's really just about being able to keep them and prevent them from going to other organizations because they do such a good job. So I don't know if there's really an area or arena where they absolutely need to add to their, like, say, major league coaching staff, but I think there's other roles. Maybe it's not necessarily called a coach, but support personnel. Maybe it's helping acclimate those Latin players, or there's various roles. I know that they've gone all in on the mental skills coaching, if you will. So I think there's absolutely room for that. As far as, like, hey, do we need a backup first base coach or something along those lines? Do we need another roving instructor? I don't know. I can't necessarily answer that question, but I think there is more. I mean, you mentioned Manny Navarro. He apparently has a monopoly on translating. So I feel like you could, have a little bit more wiggle room with that for sure.
I feel like Manny Navarro is a little bit stretched too thin. I mean, you can't have like
Yeah.
12 guys needing to have his help. And I think maybe there should be a couple more
Yeah.
Manny Navarros in there in that room. And yeah, I agree with you. Maybe not two first base coach or like a backup first base coach, but there are teams out there that have a couple of hitting coaches, because maybe, you might gravitate towards the way that this guy says. I believe, isn't Ozzie Timmons a one of two hitting coaches that the Brewers have anyway? Like,
Yeah.
this isn't like something crazy. Like, you can have two hitting coaches.
Yeah, and maybe there's something in the future where they look at it as, maybe you have a pitching coach that's more specific, or has more expertise in fastballs, and you have a pitching coach that's more focused on, or has more of a grip on breaking balls. So as far as I don't really know how to respond to the overcoaching. Maybe there's points where players need to listen better to what the coaches are asking them to do. For example, base running, and when to run and when not to run, and so forth. But I look at it from the broadcaster's view of, okay, you have Dwayne Statz and Brian Anderson. That's good. Do you really need to add a third person? Do you really need to add a fourth person into the booth? Like, at some point, it's like, well, we got too many cooks in the kitchen too. So if you're bringing in all these other people, you need to make sure they're on the same wavelength and message, and not overstepping each other as well. So that's another hurdle that has to be navigated too. And I'm curious to know, with the contraction of the minor leagues, what happened to those coaches? Did the Rays keep them around and utilize them for other roles and purposes? I feel like the player development aspect is where you can really invest a lot of resources. And maybe it's not adding coaches, but adding more to your training staff and your nutrition staff and your team of making sure that the players are physically and mentally ready, as opposed to, or in addition to, the traditional on base coach or outfield coach or infield coach or whatever it may be.
Yeah,
And
no, I like that, and you'd use the right term, the diminishing returns. Exactly that's exactly what it is. I will just to answer the question on in the booth. You know what? When KK was in the booth, it gave it a little different taste.
Yeah.
Being an outfielder, you have the pitcher. Like, okay, now we can cook. It sometimes is a little bit stuffy in the kitchen. You're right.
Right.
But I do think that there are ways that you can include more people, as long as they have the same message and the same corporate culture that you're trying to have within the Rays system. But different. I mean, maybe during the holidays there are different new coaches that can stop by and like, hey, what is your workout, and like have a
wellness coach.
Meetups. Yeah, wellness coach. I think that would be really interesting. I wouldn't put it past them. And to just answer lastly, the over coaching, if maybe Samuel meant it as in like they coach them too much and they don't let them play the game.
Yeah.
I disagree if that's if he means in the wild card series, because obviously they were swinging at pitches they shouldn't have been swinging at, and they were swinging again for 3-run home runs with nobody on base, and they kept doing that for 24 innings. And number one, if the coaches told them, hey, you should stop this, and they didn't, that's a problem, because the players are not listening to the coaching staff. And if the coaching staff did not tell them to stop it, why didn't you tell them to stop it? So that's the two.
He mentioned a big bat before we move on. If you had your choice, would you rather take Jose Abreu or Michael Brantley? Those seem to be two names that are mentioned quite a bit here.
I think I would still pick Michael Brantley.
Okay.
Just because from the left side, like, you need people that can smash righties. I mean, the Rays were completely awful against right-handed pitching. So, and I know people are going to be like, well, Wander Franco was hurt, Brandon Lau was hurt. I get it, but can we stop? Can we stop? Yes, the Rays had the third most days on the IL. We get it. Yeah. So what? Every other team has injuries. You're supposed to have depth. You can't just say we have a horrible IL fortune in 2022 and be like third bottom when you're producing against righties. Righties, Kevin. That's not an okay excuse.
No, that's fair. And going back real quickly to Sam's point about analytics and spreadsheets, I mean, every team is basically on that footprint. But what all organizations need, and this includes the Rays, is somebody that can take that scope of data and relay it to the players, like the old Michael Scott joke is, hey, explain it to me like I'm 5. You need guys who can do that. And that's something that Stan Borowski did as the bullpen coach of the Rays. And you need pretty much everybody to be able to have that ability. And maybe sometimes it's a player that's very analytically savvy and can transfer that data into a point that is easily understood and digested by fellow players. Because let's be frank, not all these players are Sam Folds. They all didn't go to Dartmouth. They all didn't go to Harvard. They all didn't go to Ivy League schools. A lot of them didn't even go to college. And if they did go to college, their major was baseball. Their major was playing sports. Let's be frank about that. All right. We've got a couple more questions to get to on today's mailbag, but we got to tell you about the commuter shirt from Rhone. The commuter shirt can get you through any workday and straight into whatever comes next. Head to Rhone.com/locked-on and use promo code locked-on to save 20% off your entire order. That's 20% off your entire order when you head to Rhone.com/locked-on. That's RHONE.com/locked-on and use that code locked on, LOCKEDON. It's time to find your corner office comfort with Rhone. All right, let's move on to this next mailbag question from Walter Rosado, who I believe is in the Orlando area. He says, "Hi guys, as always, great work. I believe the Rays need a bat or two in the lineup, and they need to fix their overall bench. I would love to see if they can make a trade with the Braves for Travis d'Arnaud. We have several bullpen options to make the trade happen, as well as other potential pieces. I could see the Rays trying to bring back Evan Longoria on the cheap, move Diaz to first, and put Longo at third and DH. What do you guys think?"
Walter, it's also been a minute since we've spoken, so very good to hear from you again. I'll answer the first one rather quickly. Travis d'Arnaud ain't going nowhere. I mean, he ain't.
Yeah.
He's not going anywhere. He's an all-star. I'm reading his slash line, dude. To think that we had this guy. 268 average, 319 on base, 472 slug, a 791 OPS, a 119 OPS plus, 18 bombs. I mean, we had this guy and didn't pursue him afterwards. Jeez. So no, Travis d'Arnaud would be fantastic. He's not leaving Atlanta. He's never leaving.
So is his point that the Rays should go after an offensive-minded catcher? I'm trying to see if that's where he's getting at.
I mean, perhaps, maybe. I don't think. I think the Rays are liking Mejia Bethancourt because
it's a good combo.
Yeah, it's a good combo. And again, we were talking on Wednesday's episode on the progression. You do expect the young players to get better. You would expect better play from Bethancourt after like a year of being within the organization. Mejia showed better strides behind the dish. He was a better defensive catcher. What can he do next year? And number 3, which is always a factor with the Rays, even though some people don't like to say it, money.
Mm-hmm.
They're cheap. It's cheap options there for Bethancourt and Mejia. So that's I don't see that changing. I know some people are going to say, "Oh, let's get Brown. Let's go Contreras." That's not happening. There are so many people bidding for those two guys. No way the Rays come out on top.
They're not going after Salvador Perez.
No. I think didn't we do an episode on that? I think we did.
We did, yeah. Our buddy Brendan Atkins, who is a Royals fan, asked straight up when are the Rays trading for Salvador Perez, and I would say that time will come when the Royals eat about 80% of his remaining salary, 60 to 80% of his remaining salary. I would say. I mean, he'd be a nice bat to have. I mean, you talk about a big bat, sure, but the price tag, no likey if you're the Rays. And then Walter also mentioned about Longo. I don't think this is the time yet to bring Longo back. I mean, theoretically, you could find a way to move Yandy to first. But I mean, considering how much we've talked about injuries and injury history, I mean, is this really the time to invest in doing the swan song with Evan Longoria? I don't know if this is the time or place.
I don't think there's going to be too much more opportunities for another swan song if you want it. I mean,
that's true too.
Going to be 37 years old next season. He has averaged 84 games in the last 2 seasons. So you're going to get a Kevin Kiermaier-esque type of season from Longo with the games played, 85. Let's say he gives you 85 games.
Okay.
He's going to get a buyout from the Giants for $5 million. I think he would really like to be back in the Tampa Bay area. he enjoys the Tampa Bay area, he would be okay with. But for how much money? And also, you have to tell Evan you're not going to be an everyday player.
Yeah.
Also, because the turf is going to hurt you. Also, we don't think putting you out there is going to be beneficial for us. I would love it. I'm a Longo fan. I will forever be one. And anytime, I don't care how much money it is, I would say, yes, bring Longo back. I will be forever irrational about Evan Michael Longoria. 100% irrational. So, Walter, you got me. Heck yeah. Bring Evan back. Bring Longo back. I'm all for it. But what are you expecting from him offensively? Because this year, he still has the bat, man. I mean, last year, 124 OPS plus. This year, 114 OPS plus. 13 bombs last year, 14 bombs, a 261 batting average, 244 this year, 833 OPS, 767. Do you guys see a trend, though? Everything has gone down. So what are you expecting from him next year?
Yeah.
Just about average production for how much money? It's tough.
Right.
But you know what? I'm irrational. Again, I would say, heck yeah, I would love to see Longo with this new crop of boys. I would imagine Longo, Randy, Wander playing together, Yandy.
Yeah.
I mean, that would just be a Rays fan's dream to see that lineup, man.
Give him, he's got the $5 million buyout. The Giants are going to decline his option, so he gets the $5 million straight up. Then the Rays give him another $5 million plus incentives, and you DH him. What about that?
Oh, okay. I thought you were going and you put duckies back in the trop.
That too, and he gets a portion of the proceeds there.
I like
yeah.
that. Bring back duckies, damn it.
Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah, because man, he's so close to 60 WAR too. He's at 58.1.
Not even, but like, look at the home runs, 331. Like, he could, if he has a nice little DH Cliff Lloyd type of season, he could bob you 19 and he could get to 350. Longo bombs. Hall of Fame?
Could you move him to, because I don't know if I necessarily want to see him at third base. Move him to first base and have him DH most of the time, and maybe that keeps his leg fresh, and he plays 120 games instead of 80 games.
Maybe. Would he be okay with that? Would he be okay with playing first? Again, there are so many questions surrounding the return of Evan Michael Longoria into the Rays organization, but I like it. And I think we're going to have like 17 episodes throughout the offseason on does Longo make sense for the Tampa Bay Rays?
Yeah. And again, 17. I think it's getting to a point in Longo's career where if he can, he just wants to keep playing no matter wherever, however the opportunity comes about. I mean, this isn't 2013 where he's, on top of the world or whatever it may be. Like, he's getting to the end of the road here. So you got to kind of take your opportunities when they're given to you. And I feel like this would be a pretty cool one if it's able to shake out. Now, I would say I'd be really disappointed if the Rays just this offseason, that was their quote unquote big bat. Like, I would like to see this in combination with I'd be cool with a Michael Brantley plus an Evan Longoria. I think that would be fun. I would be cool with that. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people will be like, wow, you're bringing two injury prone old dudes to the lineup. Wow, that's your biggest.
Yeah.
Mute those people. Mute those people in real life and on anti-social media too. Just mute them. Again, this is sports. This is reality TV at its most perfect form.
Yeah.
Okay, people. This is entertainment. It would be entertaining to see Longo, Wander, Randy together because you now would be fusing Rays fandom of 08 to 2020. Like, that would just be tremendous.
Question.
Now, would it work offensively? I don't know, but I would be willing to try for the right amount of money.
All things being equal, say the Rays have one roster spot and they have a little bit of money. They can do a couple of things here. They can, say they've gone out and they've gotten that one big bat. They somehow landed Michael Brantley, but we're looking for a little more help here. You can either have Evan Longoria or Randall Grichuk? Who would you take?
I don't care. Longo. I'd take
Okay.
Longo. Again, I'm irrational about Longo. And if you're irrational too, drop it in the YouTube comments. Make sure that you subscribe and tell me if I'm being too irrational about Longo. I already know that I am. But would you be okay with bringing back Evan Longoria to the Rays? Type it down in the comments on the YouTube section. Please and thank you.
Longoria or Rhys Hoskins? You still go Longo?
That one's rough. Not Darren rough. Maybe that's a question to be answered another time. There's got to be a point Longo's the guy.
There's got to be a point where, like, okay, the Rays can go out and get. There's got to be
Freddie
a point
Freeman.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but somebody that you can basically bank on to give you, 25 home runs and an 800 OPS and stay healthy for enough games. But the Longo factor does also count for something. I mean, what moves the meter more for the fan base? Is it a Rhys Hoskins or is it an Evan Longoria? Think about all the, not that the Rays do a great job with marketing and promotion as it is, but I mean, talk about making their job easier and making some money off of that. You can leverage that. So,
bro, make posters all around, and like I've seen buses, and that's been nice, and some billboards this year in Hillsborough. Do that with Wander next to hugging Franco. Oh, Wander hugging Franco. Jeez, it is late. Wander hugging Longo. Bro, that would be sick. That would be sick.
Yeah.
Rays fans would just go gaga for Longo next to Wander and be like, damn, I'm going to the game. I'm going to the game.
Be pretty crazy. All right. So great question there. This final question that we'll get to on today's episode from Brian Kim. He says, what's worse, the Blue Jays choking an 8-1 lead and getting swept, or the Rays not scoring and getting swept? I would say the Jays way, not just because I'm a Rays fan, but that was a big lead to choke at. Legit question from Brian Kim.
Well, Brian, yes, you are biased, and 100% you're biased because you're a Rays fan. Of course, you want somebody else to have a worse loss, because I know that I did too. I when I saw the score and they were kind of getting back into the game, I was pulling Seattle all the way. Of course, I didn't want the Rays to be the only team to be eliminated in a sweep. Thank God they weren't. But if you're looking at it, I think third person perspective, it was embarrassing the way that the Rays offense performed. There's no doubt about it. Like, you can't just say, no, that wasn't embarrassing at all to not hit at all in 24 innings. Like, that was embarrassing. But people weren't talking about the Rays' lack of offense. Like, wow, did you really see that? No, they were like, oh, okay. Yeah, I can see that happening. But what the Jays did, or basically didn't do, everybody and their mother was talking about it, because you have a 7-run lead. And hey, guess what? Rays fans, we know a little bit about that. Fenway, 2008. Mm-hmm. We remember Red Sox doing the same thing that the Mariners did to the Jays. The Red Sox did to the Rays. But that felt horrible. I remember that. It felt horrible. So yeah, I would think that the Jays loss. And besides, you were at your home park.
Right.
That's worse.
Yeah, it's way worse because of the expectations too, not just the manner in which you lost, but this was a team that won 92 games and finished second in the division and had the highest wild card. And you have home field advantage. Plus, you're facing a Mariners team that hasn't sniffed the playoffs in more than 2 decades, and you're the Blue Jays, and you've been a solid team for the last several years. You've been in, maybe it was a 1-game wild card or whatever it was, but you've had postseason baseball, and you should be able to use that experience. Plus, again, we mentioned it before, the home field advantage. So I would think with that, where you should be able to kind of bully around the Seattle Mariners to some extent because they've never experienced something like that too.
And that's why smart people don't trash talk before the thing is over.
Yeah.
Vladdy in the beginning of the season being like, "Oh, you guys just saw the trailer. Now you're gonna watch the movie." It's a quick movie. That's a quick
It was.
movie. That
Yeah.
was quicker than Frozen. I mean, and Disney movies are 90 minutes. That lasted less than that, bro. That's why you don't trash talk before the thing is over with, man.
Mhm.
Don't do that. I love seeing people trash talk and then just spit back on their face. Like, bleep and love that. Just like,
Right.
I hope you learn your lesson. I hope in spring training you don't come back saying like, "Oh well, I was just messing with, like, this is the movie." Like, no, you shut up. You've done nothing in the playoffs. Just
Yeah.
get your chin up, shoulders back, do your work, and that's it.
And a team that is as talented as they are between the rotation and that lineup, which the lineup and how strong it is top to bottom has been a theme for a while now. But when are you actually going to take that talent and translate it into a deep playoff run? We've yet to see that. I'll say this: maybe the happiest guy seeing the outcome of that series for the Blue Jays was Charlie Montoyo. He was probably probably smirked a little bit after the showing or lack thereof.
Perhaps.
So we'll see how they recover from that. But again, I had higher expectations leading into the playoffs for the Blue Jays and the Rays. I mean, I put my cards on the table saying, I don't know. I don't think the Rays are going to win this series against the Guardians. I think the Guardians are better than we give them credit for. And, at the end of the day, the Rays won 86 regular season games. The Blue Jays won 92 regular season games. So, and they had the better positioning too. So, and then of course the manner in which they lost was not ideal by any means. So, we'll see how they recover and go from there. I still think they're going to keep that manager of theirs. I think John Snyder's his name. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't pay attention to managers anymore.
No, I think it's Schneider.
What'd I say?
Snyder.
Okay, yeah, John Schneider. Okay, there we go.
There's a shush there, yeah.
Yeah. When I think of John Schneider, I think of John Schneider, the former Papa John's creator and CEO. But no,
Wait, he got in trouble, didn't he?
Yeah, he got in quite a bit of trouble. He's no longer the CEO. He, yeah.
All right, I'll
look that up on your own time.
I'll look up what he did afterwards. Yeah.
Don't repeat what he said either.
Okay.
He lost everything. Anyway, thank you for making the Locked On Rays podcast your very first listen every day. Now make your second listen the Locked On MLB podcast. That is also free and available on all platforms. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Stay safe, and we will talk to you on Friday with Evan Klosky.